Hello, everyone. I thought we'd do a more informal look at how it is directing and running Star Citizen and Squadron 42. So right now I'm actually doing some coding. I actually quite enjoy coding. I don't get to do it nearly enough, but in our push to GamesCon, I'm getting back into the code. A lot of the sort of physics and skeleton stuff and attachment stuff that we've done was I wrote originally back at the very beginning and continue to maintain. And so we're moving to what we've described it before. We have a local physics grid and a global physics grid, and we built this whole zone system that sits inside our large world in the engine, which is what we're going to be showing at GamesCon. Large world is where we've moved the entire engine sort of vector space to 64-bit from 32-bit, allowing us to have much greater distances, like millions of kilometers, even billions if you wanted, instead of what typically would happen in an FPS game, which would be sort of an 8x8 or a 10x10 square kilometer area that you can actually play on. And as part of it, to have all these big ships you fly around, well, the ship itself, can be flying like this, but you want to be walking around inside it. So the actual physics simulation of the interior of the ship and the simulation of space on the outside are separate. And so we kind of call that the local grid system, and it's tied into the zone system because the zones are areas. And so an area could be an interior of a ship, or even inside that, a room could be another zone. And a ship itself can be a zone, and then say around a planet can be a zone. And so that's how we move the data and sort of keep it in a contained manner without having to update too much stuff or render too much stuff, because we have the problem in Star Citizen that we can have huge distances with nothing in, and then we can have small areas with lots of data in, like for instance inside a big capital ship. So one of the issues, which I'll be able to show you on Mark's machine because I'm sort of in the middle of fixing the code up, is what happens is we have what's called a physical, we have this physical grid, and we have one for the interior, one for the outside. And so everything outside in sort of global space simulates in that grid, and that's how you collide against the geometry, say the Retaliator, which is the ship that we're sort of working on right here. And then you have the interior grid, and that's when you enter the Retaliator, you walk around inside the corridors and the rooms inside the Retaliator, and then we put sort of the geometry of the interior of the Retaliator inside the interior grid. And now there are elements of the actual overall ship, the Retaliator, that you probably want to have in both the global grid, which is part of sort of outside the general space, and also inside to make sure you don't fall around. And so one of the issues that we have is we add all these items inside both interior and exterior. So a seat, say inside the Retaliator, or a turret seat or anything, is a item, and it gets plugged into an item port. And typically in the item port system, it just gets attached, so it doesn't know whether it's inside and outside. So at the moment, the seats all get just added to the Retaliator, but it's all in the global grid, and the seats aren't being added on the interior grid. And so the problem is when you walk up to a seat inside the Retaliator and you want to use it, well, if you walk too far, it doesn't have any collision geometry in the interior grid, so you literally will walk through the seat that you can see the render geometry and drop right outside the ship. So it's essentially a hole inside the interior physics collision mesh, because the seat has only been added to the outside, the global physics area instead of the interior area. So the code that I'm sort of working on is allowing the physics system, when we build sort of the physics collision geometry for the skeletons. And the skeletons are what the seats are basically made of, and the ships are basically made of, that it knows that this particular item needs to be placed in both the exterior grid and the interior grid. And so we're making it so we can also have multiple different interior simulation areas inside ships, and so there's a little extra work for that, but that's kind of what I'm working on. It's a system, the attachment system, where we can attach all the different items to the ships, and they all get put into one physically simulated entity. It was actually something I wrote a while back for the very first sort of dogfighting module. That's one of the reasons why I'm extending it now to sort of deal with the concept of the interior and the exterior physics stuff. I have a bunch of code on my screen, which probably isn't that interesting to you guys, but if we go over to Mark Abent's desk, because on mine I'm still in the middle of fixing around the code, so it'll be a little bit for it to compile, and you probably don't want to wait for that. Go to Mark Abent's desk, I can actually show you the issue that I'm talking about in terms of falling through the floor. So let's go do that. All right, so we're here at Mark's desk, since he's not in the middle of refactoring a system, and we'll demonstrate what the issue is. So now we're actually inside the Retaliator. This is part of sort of the stuff that everyone can see. We're actually in the Retaliator's local grid. So we're simulating inside a separate grid than if we were outside the Retaliator. And the cockpit area here, this whole cockpit area and the seat is a separate item. And that's actually our guy. And you can see that's actually the physical proxy of that seat. Now if we can turn this off so it won't be so slow. So you would think that if you walk up to that, you would actually not walk through it. But the problem is, since that seat was added attached to the vehicle, it's only getting attached to the vehicle in its full physical entity, which is in the global grid, not in the local grid. So if we just walk through it, and we have fallen through the floor.
We have fallen out, and now we're in
no man's land.
We're on some turret on the bottom.
Yeah, if we look, can we look up? I guess we could probably see the cockpit above us. Maybe. Oh, now we've flown through. Now we've fallen through the bottom of the Retaliator for kind of the same reasons, because again, that got attached on the outside. So if you ran up to these on the outside, this is an item, so we hit F10 here. Can you use it from outside?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, there you go.
The animation enter and exits are a little long
broken.
at the moment.
So that's kind of why we have to add to both the local and the global grids, is to make sure that the collision works for in both cases when you're inside and outside, and it's not just all about the interior. So, whoa. So that's what I'm working on. Mark, what are you working on right now?
Trying to see if I can fix the enter and exit positions for the zones. As you can see, when you get in and out, using the wrong offsets.
Oh, okay, there you go. Yeah. So it's all going to look much better when you see it in a few weeks. All right, there you go. Okay, hello everyone. So last I was explaining to you the challenge of the interior and the local grid of the Retaliator, and how we needed to have the physical collision geometry of the Retaliator exist both in the global grid, which is actually where I am right now, and this is out in the main world, and also on the inside in the local grid that's just for the interior of the Retaliator. And we needed also to have the items like the seats or the guns or the turrets, all that, which are actually not part of the base vehicle, that get added on as items. They also needed to exist in both the interior and the exterior. And since they weren't existing in the interior, you would walk up to the seat, there'd be no collision, you walk through it and drop down through the bottom. So I've fixed up the physics code to essentially duplicate the physics geometry, make sure it's mirrored between both the interior and the physics. Let's walk up here. I should kind of feel like, yeah, it's all about physics. I will open. That's the elevator to get in, and if you notice, I can just turn physics on. You can see there's the bounding physics stuff for it, and we'll get into it. And this all exists in the global grid right now, so if there's collision, I could walk onto it. I could walk against here, bam, can't get out of there. So let's just use this. And as we are going up now, bam, we are now inside the global grid. And it's moved up, and if I go back over here, you can see the dark gray here is the physics geometry that's in the inside gray, the light gray is the exterior. So they're on top of each other, because it's the debug draw renders both the interior and exterior. And you'll actually see it moving around, because the ship is slightly moving around on the landing pad, because the landing skids are not actually balanced out correctly at the moment, and so that's why you're seeing that shift. And even though if I take this off, you'll see from my point of view, there is no movement, which is the whole point of the local grid, is to do that. So let's go up, and now we'll go to the cockpit area to see the actual physics working there, which weren't working before. So as you saw last time here, there's the physical geometry for that, and if I go up here, I can't bounce into it. I won't drop through the bin. There's no dropping through at all, which is great. And here, I'll just use it, get into it, and there we go. There you are. So there we have physics working both interior and exterior inside the Retaliator. I'll pop out now, and so another little feature bug thing sorted out for the full multi-crew experience. So we've actually got most of the functionality working fluidly, which before when we demoed it in Gamescom last year, we sort of had it was very specific for Constellation. This is a complete system that operates with the zone system, the large world, going in and out of the local grids completely automatic. Like in that situation, there wasn't any transition animation. I just came up on the elevator, and when I was inside the volume of the interior, automatically put me inside the interior grid. And now we have collision existing in both of them. The next stage is I need to do some ray tracing searches for both interior and interior, so we can detect the use of items, and then it will be completely fluid and systematic, and not sort of set up the way we've had it in the past, where once you're inside the vehicle, there's a special handling case. So we're trying to make everything more systematic to allow the game to be allow you to do whatever you want with it. So we're hoping that there'll be lots of cases that people start to do things that we wouldn't even expect, and it's really just going to be sort of like a great adventure out there. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed this little insight into the ins and outs of physics and local grids, and I'm looking forward to showing you more stuff as we go along, and also seeing you guys at Gamescom. Goodbye.